Hi guys, welcome to G&G live show. Gil and Gurpreet. No, I'm gonna correct myself. So I wrote a post about this yesterday. I've been too conditioned to not pronounce my name correctly. It's Gurpreet, the authentic Punjabi way to pronounce my name. So I'm going to be correcting myself, thanks to Neetu, Global TV anchor, who created this video yesterday in light of Khalsa Day, which is a Sikh religion holiday. So yes, my name is pronounced Gurpreet. So you're going to keep seeing me correcting myself. On that note, we have a great guest today that is going to talk to us about highly sensitive individuals. I'm a sensitive person, and I think I've been called a highly sensitive person. What about you, Gil?
Once or twice.
Okay.
Once or twice, yeah. No, I've always been, since I was a kid, I was definitely always a very highly sensitive person.
So both of us have personal experiences with this topic, being sensitive people. That's why we are welcome to have Melody to come talk to us about this. She is an executive coach. Actually, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be here. So yes, I am an executive coach. My background is actually as a licensed social worker. So I very much bring the psychology, neuroscience, managing your own thoughts and emotions to my executive coaching work. But I'm also the author of the new book, Trust Yourself, which comes out in just a few weeks. And it's called Trust Yourself, Stop Overthinking, and Channel Your Emotions for Success at Work.
Oh, great. Thank you for sending me the copy of the book once I get out.
I'm excited for you to read it.
Yes. I read a little bit of what you sent yesterday, just kind of like an overview of it. So let's dive right into this topic. First of all, let's talk about what makes someone a highly sensitive person, or what qualifies someone as a highly sensitive person.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about high sensitivity because we were talking in pre-show about, we've all been called sensitive, and that's many times meant as a dig that, oh, you're being so sensitive, you take everything personally, why are you so high maintenance and overreacting, right? And so no one wants to be sensitive, but I think it's time that we reclaim the term for the strength that it actually is. So when we talk about being highly sensitive, what we're really referring to is having a more highly attuned nervous system. So research shows that about 15 to 20% of the population, so actually 1 in 5 people, has this biological trait difference. Really, their brain works differently to lead them to be more attuned to everything that's happening both within them and around them. So we are more attuned to our own emotions, those of other people. We're more perceptive, observant, highly empathetic, and emotionally intelligent. We tend to be very intuitive, deep thinkers, and feelers. So I just wanted to put that out there because most people think that this is a curse or a weakness that you are highly sensitive, but it's really actually a very real thing that when used correctly in your career and your leadership can make you more effective and powerful.
It's interesting you say those words because I used to see it as a weakness, being highly sensitive, highly emotional. I always thought as that it's my weakness. I've never seen it as a strength until maybe about 2 years when I said, no, this is my strength. How many people can say they're highly sensitive or emotional or can empathize with other people? This is actually my biggest strength. It's not my weakness. So I started to make that shift, especially in my personal life. And then I started becoming very vocal. Recently, I became really vocal about it too, that no, it's your superpower. It's not. Like, I think it's time that we stop labeling people, or, you're too emotional, you're too sensitive, you think too deep, you feel too deep. Because in order to do that, if you do feel that you are, and I agree with you, you are intuitive, empathetic, and that should be embraced, and that should be your superpower. Now, how can one use this in the workplace to really excel in their roles?
So many ways. And I think so many things that have probably made you so successful in your career, you might not even realize can be traced back to your sensitivity, because the way you can sense and understand people in your role as a recruiter and working with companies, all of that is probably due to this way of responding to the world, right? So high sensitivity, one big way that it can be used as a strength in the workplace is that sensitive people are very diplomatic and they're brilliant critical thinkers. So as someone who is more sensitive, you think longer and more deliberately. We take in more information than the average person and we process that more deeply. So that ability to really pause before responding, to think before you act, is a tremendous strength in the workplace. And, the trait actually evolved in humanity because evolutionarily speaking, it was advantageous to have someone that wouldn't just go run into danger not knowing what was there. It was useful to have someone that was thoughtful and slowed down. And so in the workplace, sensitive strivers and sensitive people in general, I call them sensitive strivers because I specifically work with people who are highly sensitive and high achieving. But this type of personality, we are someone who is very tactful in the way we communicate. We don't just blurt something out and offend someone. We're very thoughtful and strategic with how we present our ideas and opinions. We are able to balance different perspectives. So we're taking in information from multiple sides. We synthesize that into something very powerful. So you might be someone who is able to take a lot of your disparate career experiences and really make that something unique to offer, insights from different industries, for example. Sensitive strivers, because we're deeper processors, we tend to be a few steps ahead of other people. So you may find that when you're in meetings, you have that sensation of, I really want to share this idea, but no one has brought it up yet. So it's probably not a good idea. Why isn't anybody saying that? If it was a good idea, they would have mentioned it, right? And that is a limiting belief, and that holds you back, because if you are waiting for other people to say it, you have probably arrived at conclusions and eventualities way before other people have. So having the confidence to speak up and share those things and offer those really creative, original thoughts is part of your superpower.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're correct. Being a sensitive person, being able to feel people's emotions has helped me excel in my HR career. Yeah. Has allowed me to think differently, even in terms of processes, HR policies. I just wrote one post today on some of the things that need to change, and one of them was reference checks. It has, I'm not going to lie, and it has made me, I would say, a better HR professional because I'm able to take people's emotions and build processes from that angle. Or if an employee came to me to address a concern, I wasn't quick to say hush, or brush them off. I was able to even recognize that, hey, we are working in a work environment. None of us are perfect. There'll be days where we just need to vent. And I allowed venting sessions in my HR office. Hey, come vent. Just let me know you're venting. So I'm not going to take any notes. So yes, I would contribute to some of the things that I've been able to do in HR has been because of the sensitivity that I feel towards people's emotions and feelings, and because I can sense it. Gail, what about you?
A few things I want to say about this. So one thing I really found interesting, what you said, Melody, was about diplomacy, because that's one thing that since I was a little kid, that's like my grandmother used to say, oh, he should be a diplomat. He should be a diplomat. And I've never really made that connection between empathy and diplomacy, because the ability to put yourself in other people's shoes and understand that there are multiple sides to the story. So I really appreciate that. One thing I also want to say is that this is also, for me, gets to the heart of what ended up driving my career path, was that a lot of early in my career, I would sit in focus groups And I would see and appreciate the pain and the frustration that employees were dealing with based on bad decisions and bad behavior from leadership, which then really drove me to, that was the change that I wanted to make, because there is so much suffering, emotional, at work, outside of work, because of that. Yeah. So I really appreciate where you're coming from. I have one question though, through all of this, because, it's really fascinating stuff. And I really appreciate what you're saying, that it's sort of misunderstood as sensitivity as a negative thing. And I appreciate that. There's a lot of great things. Gurpreet says it's part of her superpower. There are aspects of my life for sure that I'm better off as a result of it. What can that 80 to 85% of the population who hasn't been blessed/cursed with this type of nervous system, what can they do to emulate those positive things? Because it doesn't come naturally to them. Whereas the three of us might be sitting in a meeting with an acute awareness of the emotional responses of each person around the table and an understanding of where they're coming from. That's not natural to a lot of people, but it's still a benefit. So what can somebody do?
That is... It says so much about you that you're even asking that. Just let me back up there. And, you are exactly right about sensitivity being a blessing and a curse. It can be a double-edged sword, and we can go into that. But you're right that what we need now more than ever is this more human-centered, compassionate, empathetic approach to leadership. And I think we've seen that change in terms of, a more servant leadership style. But you're right. We have a long way to go. And I also agree with you and believe that other people, the other 80%, can learn a lot from us sensitive folks. And so I think a couple of things. I think, as Gurpreet was saying, opening up this space for conversations about how are you doing as a person, especially now where I'm not sure if either of you have seen this with the organizations and the people you're working with, but certainly with my clients, people are working longer than ever before. Workloads are just insane right now. People are burning out at record rates. I think I saw the latest research was something like 85% of people are reporting that they're burned out. And we need to be having conversations about how people are doing in terms of their well-being and their work-life balance and their mental health even. And I think as leaders and even as coworkers and stakeholders, we can create the space for that to say, push back here. If your plate is completely full, tell me, and we can prioritize where this fits in. Or let's have a conversation about what else you have on your plate at home and how we might need to adjust your hours or expectations with the client as a result of that. So really opening up those conversations about stress, since as more sensitive people, we do tend to get stressed and overwhelmed more easily. But many times we hide it and we keep overcompensating because we don't want to be perceived as weak or inadequate or not as tough as everyone else. So we will kind of be the quiet soldier, but then we become a risk when we burn out and get sick. Many of my clients come to me because they have had to take medical leave from their jobs due to burnout or some sort of medically induced, stress-induced medical condition. Or we lose that person. They quit one day because they're like, I can't take this anymore. So starting those conversations early and often is so key.
You bring a good point about burnout. Yes, I've seen this. I've seen it around me. I've seen it with family, friends. How many people are working long hours, 10, 12 hours. I have a friend, acquaintance that's working for a Fortune 500 company, but then when the pandemic, they laid off a lot of people, but the work still needs to be done. The work got added to her plate. She's working like around the clock. And yes, it's how long can someone continue like this? And we've been in the pandemic, over a year now. And so going back to sensitive people, now how can, and I can imagine emotional sensitive people may not even be able to voice this concern. Like I call myself sensitive, but I'm also but I also have another side to me. I'm also strong. Like I went 100%. Through and it's also because I went through a lot. I didn't automatically become strong. I used to be the quiet person, sit there quietly in the meetings, don't used to even put up my hand in classroom. I didn't want to present. But experience teaches you, and then you grow from it. But I can relate to somebody who may just sit there quietly and just take it. And right now we're seeing it a lot because the burnouts are happening because of the workload. People are working long hours, and also mentally dealing with this pandemic. I can't sit there, but I've dealt with it perfectly fine, and I can't sit there and say that my mental health hasn't been impacted on and off lockdown, lockdown, stay at home order. Like it does. Sometimes it's just like, you want to just scream. But luckily I work for myself, right? I'm my own business, so I'm the boss, right? Like if I don't want to work, that's fine. My team, same thing. Hey, take the time off. But sensitive people, what steps or advice can you give them to say, okay, if you are dealing with over workload or you feel like burning out, how do you now, what steps can they take to get themselves to the point where they should actually approach a manager to talk about it?
Yeah. So in the book, I actually talk about, and what we're really talking about here is boundaries, right? Is discerning where you have let other people cross your limits, or where you have taken on too much without speaking up, where you have been people pleasing and saying yes, and neglecting your own needs and opinions in favor of other people. And the core of what sensitive strivers need more of is boundaries, because we will sacrifice ourselves in the name of the work and other people all day long. And so in the book, I go through a assessment for figuring out where you even need boundaries, because many times we're blinded by wanting to be the committed team player, right? That we don't even know what situations we should start pushing back on. So there's a full assessment in the book, but the number one place I would start is looking for situations that bring up a sense of resentment or bitterness. So when I ask clients this question, typical situations that come to mind are ones like you were mentioning, where, maybe someone left and you said you could temporarily take on the workload, but now it's been 3 or 6 months and it's still the same case that you have this person's work. Or maybe a colleague isn't pulling their weight, for example. But looking at these situations where you feel resentment or bitterness is a really great way to start using your emotions as data. Because as sensitive people, we often think our emotions are just a nuisance. Wouldn't it be so much easier if I could just get rid of these and I had an off button and could just be rid of all of my feelings? But your feelings are really important signals and data about what is important to you, and they're trying to get your attention. And they give you information about the world and actions that you should take. And resentment is a really great one, that you have let a situation go on too long, longer than it should, and you need to take some sort of action to set a boundary.
You actually, Gil, do you have anything to add before?
No, I think it kind of raises one question for me, because you're talking about one of the risks, potential downsides of being highly sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Is that that empathy will overtake us, that will want to make everybody happy, will be the people pleaser, all of those things. At a high level, what are some of the other risks that we should be aware of? What are some of the things we might have a possibility of going down that path, because it's paved with good intentions, but the reality is that it doesn't serve us, and it can end up leading to maladjusted thought patterns or maladjusted behavior?
Oh, so good. You have done a lot of personal work on yourself. You're like right where I'm going with this. So, as a sensitive person, our qualities are at once, our greatest source of strength. But if we don't have tools to manage or leverage them correctly, can really get in our way, as you were saying. So people pleasing, overextending yourself, over functioning, those I would say all fall in the same category of putting other people ahead of you. With over functioning, I see this a lot with leaders, where you may be the one swooping in to fix situations. You may be, your team becomes dependent on you for information, for direction, to the point where, you are stopping them from moving ahead. So you actually build a dependence on you as a leader, and your team does not become empowered to make their own decisions and come to you with solutions. They're just always looking to you. So with overfunctioning, you take on more responsibility than is yours. So that's one category. As you were saying too, with the maladaptive thought patterns, you were right on track there. Our thoughtfulness, that ability to be very reflective, deep thinkers, very self-aware, when unbalanced, can become overthinking, excessive worrying, rumination, and also a lot of
Sorry to
imposter
interrupt, but I have
syndrome.
no idea what
Yeah.
you're talking there. I've never
No idea?
experienced, no idea what
I
you're
know.
talking about. Not,
Okay.
does not resonate at all.
You know, when you're saying overthinking, oversensitive, or letting situations go on for so long, I'm sitting there, yep, done it. I've done this. I've let situations go on, overthink so many times, thought over, like letting things get
Yeah.
to you longer than it should.
So sorry, I didn't
That's
mean to
right.
interrupt, but please go
No.
on with that.
No, you're exactly right, and I'm glad you relate to it. We have all of us sensitive folks have been there, and like I was saying, you know, with the people I work with who are very high achieving, in addition to being sensitive, their ambition, the ambition side, can also get unbalanced to the point where they are wanting to exceed expectations in every way, that they place such high standards on themselves. They become perfectionists. Nothing is ever good enough. Everything is unrealistic. You have so many goals and to-dos that you overwhelm yourself, and you don't get any of them done. So those are a few of the big categories I see. As is, you know, emotion regulation, where you were talking about, Gurpreet, about emotionality and really feeling things deeply. You're empathetic, you have a pulse on what's happening with people, on morale, but sometimes we can become derailed by our own reactions, right? We get so caught up in anger, frustration, sadness sometimes that, again, if we don't have the right tools, it's very hard to lift ourselves out of those states because we feel things so deeply.
I was having the same conversation with another HR professional yesterday along these lines of how a lot of people don't know another side to HR. It can be a little bit dark, where depending on your role, and you've had to deal with so many different situations, and it can emotionally drain you out. Like, I've done sexual harassment investigations,
Yeah.
Also, you have to keep constantly checking your bag to make sure that, like, because you don't know how people are going to act, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me about his situation where he did a sexual harassment, where he also had to keep checking his bag, and he's in the States, so he had a gun and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, like, we don't talk about these things openly in the right space, but a lot of the things that we have to go through or deal with can emotionally drain us. And it's like, as much as you want to separate the two, like, you can't just unplug, right? I would love to come home and just say, you know, I had a great day at work, and like not think about work. But tools, you're right. You need to have tools into place. Otherwise, you're just going to get drained out. And I've done, like, I don't know what you would recommend, but I think something that's been instilled in me since I was a kid, and it's kind of kept me afloat. And recently, last year, I think I took it to another level, meditation.
Yeah. Meditation. I mean, incredibly powerful. Anything that helps you lower your level of stimulation is huge. And I see this with the sensitive people I work with all the time. Again, they take on so much. They're very hard driving and high achieving. Like someone yourself, you were saying, I'm very strong. And I know you are such a go-getter, and you have a lot on your plate. But as someone who is sensitive, speaking for myself, I can become very easily overwhelmed with that. And if I am not working with a full deck of my emotional or mental resources, it's very easy for me to get really upset and then get in those bad mental places. So having practices like meditation, breathing, closing your eyes for a minute between calls, all of those things help lower your level of stimulation. And specifically when I work with clients, doing this around meetings, because with sensitive people, you may find you go into a meeting and then you are so overwhelmed with trying to say the right thing and offer something that's smart. And what are all the other people thinking here? And I see someone kind of winced when I said that. And you're trying to process everything that you become paralyzed. You get in a fear state and you become paralyzed. So before those potentially stressful situations, you have to be paying attention that you're lowering your baseline of stimulation, so that you're not going into this like right off another meeting and you're rushing and you're discombobulated. You want to make sure that you have time and space to get yourself prepared, to process and think about what you want to share, to do a quick meditation. All of that helps you get centered and show up as your best.
It's so funny you're saying all these things, because subconsciously I've done all these things without knowing, because as early as I think it was high school, I hate being late. I can't, I hate being late. I have to be early. I have to be 10 minutes early, 20 minutes early. So growing up, same thing. I had to, I hate late. I can't, it does give me anxiety. So wake up early. I used to wake up 2-3 hours early, both me and my sister. I don't know how she feels because we're both the same sign. But as you're saying this, I just was as a kid, right? But I recognize, I'm feeling this way if I'm late. I'm feeling this way, and that kind of just throws me off for a while. Solution, okay, don't be late. I want to be early. Even when I used to go for job hunting as a candidate, I recognize that I will show up 30 to an hour early at a spot. I'll pick a coffee place right next. Just sit. I need that relaxed time.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you. I'm actually now trying to think of how many hours I've spent in my life at places early, because I'd rather be early somewhere than at home tense and wondering if I'm going to get there on time. So it's okay, I'd rather, get there 15 minutes, half hour early, you said, find a coffee spot, have a chance to reduce the stimulation from the fact that I'm excited or whatever, whatever it is. We only have a couple of minutes left. So one question I did want to get to, because I have my opinions about Zoom and video calls and all of that kind of thing, which, I love them for one-on-one calls, but it can be very overstimulating when you've got 5, 10, 15 faces staring at you. And especially you said, you're over aware of, did somebody wince when you spoke, even if it was just because their leg hurt or whatever it might be. Do you have any tips for that, for people, for highly sensitive people, in terms of trying to deal with video and Zoom fatigue?
Yes. And it's very real right now. And so, yes, as I was saying, both of you are exactly right. And I think what you were saying about getting to places early gets to the point that sensitivity just is. It's part of who you are. It's how you use it. And so both of you have set up your lives and have found things that work for you. And I think that's an important takeaway for everyone, that you just need to find and set up your work in your life in a way that works for you if you have this trait. But definitely having some sort of pre-meeting ritual where you're getting yourself in the zone, you're getting yourself centered, makes a big difference. So much of preparing for those types of situations happens before you get in the room. Because as someone who is more sensitive, you're going to feel much more comfortable and safer if you feel like the people who are there. If we feel like, oh my gosh, they're strangers, they're judging me, then that's going to send you reeling. So really important to be building relationships with people, connections more one-on-one ahead of the call. Again, anticipating and preparing, I have many of my clients send an email around to people saying, hey, what's the number one thing you would like to get out of this call? Or the number one question I could address for you. So they have been able to anticipate and get some of that information and feel more comfortable going in, that they're not going to get totally sideswiped. But in terms of the actual Zoom fatigue, turning off your self-view is huge. I mean, very simple, but turning off your self-view on Zoom is a setting, and it just will turn off, your camera will stay on, but you won't be able to see yourself. And there's been so much research coming out about how the self-monitoring effect on Zoom, where you're literally looking at yourself, is highly stressful, because in real interactions, you don't have a mirror in front of you. You're not looking at yourself. So it's really mentally taxing to be staring at yourself and analyzing, like, oh my gosh, my hair looks bad, and all of those things. So turning that off, because that's an energy drain, and turning on speaker view so that you don't see the whole Brady Bunch squares. You just see the one person who is the active speaker, or you just see one other person on the screen. It prevents you from overthinking, and just keeps your concentration just on speaking to one person, which can help with your focus.
Amazing. That is such great advice. And yeah, when I discovered last March that I could turn off self-view on Zoom, it was a game changer for me. It was really, because I would walk out of every Zoom call like stressed and uncomfortable from having to be aware. And I mean, unfortunately on StreamYard, I'm stuck with the same thing, and I don't know how to do it. But on a typical Zoom call, I'm able to eliminate that. And that has been a game changer for me. Melody, you've had such amazing insights and really, really great advice. How can people get in touch with you? How can they buy the book? When does the book come out? Where can we find out all that information?
Thank you so much. I invite anyone who's watching to follow me here on LinkedIn. And you can find more about me at my website, melodywilding.com. The book comes out May 4th in just a few weeks, but you can pre-order now at my website, melodywilding.com/book, and we can drop the link. And we're giving away some really awesome bonuses, including a month-long coaching experience with me if you pre-order. So you definitely want to check that out.
Amazing. May the 4th be with you.
That's right. I hope it's good luck. That's right.
Good luck with your new book. Look forward to reading it. And thank you for hopping on and sharing your insights with us today. So that's our segment today, guys. We'll be back on next Wednesday with another guest, same time, 1:30, and we'll see you then. Bye.